Our state has some incredible problems. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. I'm here to talk about that with you and talk about the trends that have shaped this state and dragged us in one direction or another. We're not really we're not realizing the dream we had way back in the early 2000s or even around 2008 or 9 or 10. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. Welcome to BIZ Nebraska. We're going to get it on right now. Thank you. Thank you. You know, we've got a little time here in front of us. We want to talk about the big picture, the influences that have shaped this state. We're not an exception to the rule. Iowa has a lot of similar trends, but we really have got a lot of problems here. But I want to back up for just a second. I had a pivotal conversation. By the way, I'm a management consultant and a speaker, and I try to work my way into situations that appear on the surface untenable, right? Creativity and innovation become the key element to unlock the door. And that's really where we're at here in this state. And frankly, we've been in this position. It's just worsened a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, Nebraska has got a lot of accomplishments. It's not that they haven't done lots of things right. They've worked hard in some respects. But we're going to talk about the nature of economic development. We're going to get to that. And the changing nature of it and why it has to change, because the paradigm that the city leaders, I don't care if you're in Ainsworth or Ogallala or Hastings or whatever, you're all struggling with the same issue. So we're going to talk about those issues. And of course that changes economic development and the need to do certain things. We have to de-emphasize some things, have to emphasize some new things. But what we have to embrace overall is innovation, all right? Innovation is it drips off my tongue so rapidly. I must use the word every day of my life 20 times, you know. But when I talk to people, and good people, right? I mean, well-intentioned people that want to manage their communities and their cities and do the right thing, and how do we get out of this mess, and how do we create jobs and get the GDP going up here and so on and so forth. But when I mention the word innovation, I mean, in some cases, they physically, literally cringe, right? Because that would mean doing something that we've never done before, right? And that means there might be failure, there's risk. And who would take the blame? You know, the city council, the mayor, the chamber. Who's going to take they've literally asked me, who's going to take the blame if this doesn't work? Is it going to be you? We're going to call you in Omaha? See? So this is their first gut instincts, their impulse. We have to kind of let that kind of flow by. But I'm getting ahead of myself right now. We're talking about a conversation that is a seminal conversation. It was foundational in my being here today, and because that's the name of the program, BIZ Nebraska, because of this conversation. Now, for a number of years, I've had conversations with economic development officials. That's not me. I don't have any official or professional affiliation with economic development here in the state of Nebraska, but I study it from afar, and I amass notes and articles and research and statistics, and I begin to piece together this very interesting picture. In fact, I began doing this in March of 2002. That's a long time to be studying economic development when you're not even in the industry, right? Nobody's paying me to sit around and say, no, we got this and this is happening right here, and we're down from last year, and what does this mean? And to ruminate over all of this. I don't even have a client in that area. So that's how much it means to me to be able to actually play a role and make a contribution. I wanted to build my knowledge, develop some degree of credibility, and I've done exactly what I just shared with you right now for 16 years. So I'm going to share with you now from my heart, as well as some of the trends that I've focused on, some of the things that have happened. And anyway, I may sometimes make a phone call to somebody and introduce myself and see where I can go with the conversation. And I'll say, well, this happened. I called the Economic Development Department in Washington, D.C. By the way, that's kind of a small department as government institutions go. Nothing even close to the Department of Agriculture or something else like that. But I did get the regional rep. There's a gentleman that is responsible for helping create jobs and attract companies to the states of Nebraska, Iowa, I think Kansas as well. I'm not exactly sure what his territory was. There's 3 or 4 states. But he was an intelligent man. He could tell that I was sincere and well-informed. And I contacted him. I said, you know, What do I have to do to introduce a specific idea that I have, a theme, a concept, we'll call it a platform. I've got something for the entire state. And it's going to be able to do a lot of things and be helpful in a lot of different ways, and I can't seem to find somebody that wants to talk about the future. Instead, we talk about problems from a tactical point of view. You know, well, we got this problem over here, we're going to throw some money at it, get a couple people going over there, we're going to do that. Then we're going to go over here, and we got a problem in the west end of the state, and they're doing this. And so it seems like the dialogue, of course I'm on the outside looking in, but it seems like the dialogue is tactical, fragmented, and the initiatives that they're doing are under-resourced. And more importantly, there's no heart and soul in anything they're doing. I don't hear anybody effusing about what the state could be. I guess that's the real issue, right? There's nobody that lives here. Now, there are people around, and most of them are over 50, that say, well, this is the good life. We've all heard that idea before. Nebraska's the good life and so on. Although I don't hear it quite so much, because the statistics that keep encroaching upon us, whether it's opioid use in small rural towns, depression, and the number of suicides that are up in the state, and education issues, and the fact that they can't find succession, they can't find anybody to take over and be a mayor in a little town because nobody wants to do it. I mean, there's a lot of problems. Do you know in Nebraska, and I'm going off track here, I'll tell you what he had to say here in a few minutes. But do you know that Nebraska is the worst state in the United States for startups headed by a woman? No female startups in the state of Nebraska. Now, we've always had a bad reputation for venture capital. That's it. Everybody knows that. Down in the bottom quintile, you know, with Alabama and Mississippi and some of those states, they don't believe a lot in venture capital and so on. That's been an issue in the state for a long time. But particularly females, right? Female startups. And this kind of turned this way back around 2004, 5, 6, right in that period of time when Al Winstrand left and Richard Baer took over, and he had a different philosophy there. And they were landing big companies like Walmart and big warehouses. That was the kind of the desired shot for the day or for that particular period of time. And entrepreneurial, especially a lot of small startups, even those self-employed companies, by the way. I mean, I'm sure you all know this. I don't want to belabor this, but the job creation comes out of the self-employed sector here in the state of Nebraska. It's the #1 creator of new jobs. Pretty much everybody knows that, but you don't see much effort or resources going into getting more of that at all. All right? It's the really large warehouses and data centers and so on. Everybody knows that. That's nothing new about that. So I'm going to come back to this conversation I had with this regional rep from Washington, D.C. And we chatted just like this. I'm talking with him like I'm talking with you right now. And he said, you know, Lynn, he said, you're absolutely right. He said that the job of an economic developer is changing because there aren't enough. None of us is going to win enough if we focus on bringing companies from outside our community into our community. There just aren't enough of them out there. It's just not going to happen, especially some of these smaller communities. They fail in that regard. That doesn't mean they're failures as communities, by the way. Some of them are fantastic and vital, vibrant communities, but they don't really succeed at scouting around the region and finding some company that wants to grow and wants to come to, I don't know, whatever, Ainsworth or Ogallala or whatever. That's a tough sell. You don't want to be an economic developer if that's your job description in those kinds of communities. It just can't be done. So, but there's an interesting problem. Again, everybody knows the fact that there aren't enough workers for the jobs. That's the key issue. We have existing employers inside these communities, Hastings, Beatrice, Grand Island. They can't get people to take the jobs, right? Sometimes they're underemployed, unemployed. These people don't want to work in some cases, or sometimes it's not enough money. For whatever reason, they can't get these people to apply for a job, get into training, show up at 8 o'clock the next morning or whatever, and be a productive laborer or worker. Can't get it done. So that now, because that's totally different than going and finding some company from outside the county and convincing them to come and relocate in your state, and give them free utilities, and give them a frontage road, and give them a break on the mortgage, and so on and so on, lend them money at very low rates, and so on. Completely different game. So this guy on the phone, he said, you know, Lynn, he said, the role of an economic developer does, in fact, have to change because of what we just talked about. And he said, you know, your vision or your emphasis on vision and having a vision that pulls everybody together, even Eastern and we already know about the worldview, how it is dramatically different from Western Nebraska, Eastern Nebraska. They don't really look at life the same way, and they have a real hard time working with each other. I talked to a guy who is one of our senators from this part of the state, and he got a vacation home up near Columbus, Nebraska. There's a lake up there or something, and he bought this vacation home. And, he was up there kind of settling in. He'd been there a couple weekends. And he came across a person who lived in the area or something. He was chatting at the drugstore or whatever it was. And this guy said, he says, we don't want any Omahans here. We don't want anybody coming here from Omaha. We don't want any city people here. So, and this gentleman, again, a senator from this area said, he said, I didn't think that attitude still existed. I just didn't think anybody really felt like that there was such deep polarization between those two worldviews. So this gentleman I had on the phone, this economic development rep, said, there's time now. It's a time for portraying a vision for the state. That has to be emotional. It has to resonate with people. He's telling me this now. And if you've got an idea along those lines, your career, that's what you've done, obviously, is come up with this kind of thing. And of course, I sent him the stuff, so he knew where I was going. And I'm going to share that with you here. He said, this is the kind of thing we need now, because there's nothing else. There's no other strategy. We're just going to be, there's never enough resources. We're going to have all these individual tactics, all these individual problems. There's not one cohesive idea about not who we are now, but who we want to be. Who we want to be. And what kind of people do we want to attract to the city? I just told you about that little anecdote up in Columbus. I guarantee if you ask those two people, who do we want to come here and live here and work here and set up a family? They would have two very different answers, two very different. So we are a divided state. We live in a divided country, a lot of polarization going on. We have it here in our state as well. It's not obvious to many of us, but it certainly does exist, especially when you get outside the state. So you have this tension that kind of injects itself into dialogues when you're chatting with the chamber people and mayors and whatever, we're going to do this or that. One great example of this, by the way, is the whole Hastings, Grand Island, Kearney area. Now, way back when Governor Johans was here in Nebraska, by the way, he had a great idea. He went back east. He went to South Carolina. He saw Spartan, Greensboro, and so on. And there's a high-tech triangle. I'm sure you've heard of the triangle there in South Carolina. It's a very productive, kind of Silicon Valley kind of a place. And it was really kicking it back in the 90s, I guess it was. And he went out there and he was inspired. This is Governor Johans now. He was inspired by these three cities, kind of medium-sized cities, and they were collaborating and attracting really, smart people who had a lot of ambition, and I mean, it was just bustling, that particular region, and so regional collaboration was like a big deal, it was a trend. So he came back here to Nebraska. He said, "I'm going to give that a shot. We need to try that," and he tried to get the leaders of Grand Island, Kearney, and I think it was Hastings together, and come up with these more ambitious plans that involved collaboration. Well, he couldn't go very far before they started saying, well, what part of that pie do we get? Right? How are you going to parse that up? Well, what if they don't go for you and they go for us? Is that a problem? So they didn't really buy into what collaboration really is and what co-creation, that's the word today, right? That's what everybody talks about. Let's go beyond collaboration. Let's work together and co-create. It's a cool idea. It's a good thing. Let's create something together that didn't exist before by leveraging our respective strengths and so on and make something happen together. Well, anyway, he said, the state is ready for a vision. you've got that kind of an attitude, you're stuck with it, obviously you care about this. If there's anything I can do to help you, we don't have a lot of power here, we don't have a lot of money or whatever, but call me anytime if you'd like. I think it's your time. I think we've reached a time where you can make that play. Now this is a stranger, I'd never talked to before. He was an official, He's not an entrepreneur. He's not that kind of a guy. And he said so. He said, you're obviously skilled at seeing opportunity. He said, you understand that in my job is to avoid risk, to protect, to defend my turf. He says, I know all that now. I'm old enough now to realize how I've been conditioned to be that way. And many, many people are like that, especially as they get older, right? That's a common thing. We all know that. But anyway, he said, I think it's time for innovation in Nebraska. You sound like the guy who can carry the ball. Good luck. Call me if I can help you in any way. Remember, anybody who tries to block you, you make the point that the current economic development paradigm or model, the way we've been doing things, isn't working. You don't have to work too hard to make that point. It's not working. All right, so, and by the way, we can talk all about all the problems and how they've worsened and so on and so forth. Brain drain would be, of course, the number one thing, really. That would be it. All right, when your best and brightest young people leave the state, that creates a lot of other related problems. Some of them are psychic problems, right? Morale. You get in these small towns, and the people that are there are resentful. They feel they've been left behind. Think about that for a second. That's a unique feeling. And you don't want to really accept it. Your attitude is you get a little defensive. Well, forget it, Go ahead and go off and be a success somewhere. Go to Kansas City, I don't care. I'll hold down the fort here in our dusty little town that hasn't changed in 30 years. So that's going on. There is a truly an emotional and a psychic thing happening in our state that we have to be sensitive to and build it around. All right, so what's the idea, huh? What's the big idea? Well, now we're going to get into the world of advertising. This is a world I've come out of, and some people will say, great, and other people say, we've been down that road before, and the branding and the themes and all that stuff. I understand that. Also, though, however, many of those were just words. How do I say it? They were messaging tools, and that was it, right? They didn't actually lead to, specific tangible initiatives or projects, other than just say, feel good about the good life. You're here in Nebraska. It's a good life. Enjoy yourself. It's a good life, right? But this particular idea, it has more meat to it, I believe. And it goes with our state. Now, it could go with Kansas. Could go with Iowa, maybe. But it's a concept called, here we go, grassroots innovation. That's the word, grassroots innovation. That's the phrase. So grassroots is an important thing. Obviously, it relates to the flatlands of our entire state, largely. And so there's a lot of grass here, and people get that quickly. They go, okay, I get that. Now, here's the interesting thing. Our state, we like pragmatic, we kind of eschew sophisticated or polished forms of advertising or marketing or whatever. It's not everybody, but it does happen. There are a lot of traditionalists in this state. So when you say this is a really grassroots idea, I think you're saying it's populist, right? People are stepping up and embracing it and at every level, and we don't have to hit people over the head with it. They don't need to see it 17 times to get it. Grassroots. But the second word, of course, is innovation. So you go into every city, every community in the entire state, and you launch a grassroots innovation initiative, all right? And so the key idea is, where can we innovate here in this particular community? So we can customize it. Every community is different. But the notion is that when you come to the state, and I'm thinking about the younger generation now, by the way, okay? A lot of these people that are under 35 or under 30, their big thing in life, their cultures, is about authenticity. Because they eschew, like I said before, the corporate rhetoric, the baby boomer pitch, et cetera, for whatever reason, whether that's good, bad, or different. The word authenticity may be the single most popular word with the generation of people under 35. Is he or she authentic? I don't care about all the rest. I just want to know, is he for real? Well, Nebraska has the ability to be for real, right? We look and act for real. We do actually appear to be authentic people in an authentic state. So it is an idea with grassroots innovation, all the different extensions, all the different projects that could roll out of it. How are you guys doing grassroots innovation? How are you guys doing grassroots innovation? How is it? Can you do it together? By the way, we do have the internet, of course, so there's all kinds of online collaboration that should be going on in this state amongst people because they have a shared project or shared values. Have you ever done any work with people that they don't really have anything in common with you, but we have the same principles? We believe in the same things. We have shared values. We're both kind of believe in this basic thing here. So let's do something together and maybe exchange information. Now, here's the idea, an extension. It'll be one example of grassroots innovation. I'm sure some of you have heard of platforms. This word platforms are very common these days in our society. Google is a platform. Facebook is a platform. People can climb on the platform, figuratively, right, and do business with somebody else, exchange information with them or whatever, create value. So you get up on the platform, and whoever owns the platform essentially gets a piece of the transaction. So however the value is being created, they benefit. But they're hosting a party. That's when you have a website that is a platform, you're hosting the party. Now, a year and a half ago, Harvard Business Review, a guy came out and said, if your business doesn't have a platform in 3 years, by 2019 or something like that, you're out of business. You're out of business. It's over. I really dug into this, you know. Really read about it, gave a speech about it. It completely blew people away. My audience members were like, is he for real? Right? But platform economics will be the defining model for us, and it'll go from business to community to socialization. Well, anyway, let me ask you this theoretical question. This is a grassroots innovation thing. What if the state of Nebraska had a platform? Huh? And somebody in Fremont could get up on that platform and do business in the broadest terms with somebody he didn't know in Scottsbluff. And that there would be some kind of added value. I mean, obviously, we can all do business with whomever we want on the internet, but we're on a platform together. The platform is branded. You know, there's a lot of ideation that goes on in eastern Nebraska, a lot of software development, things like that. There's a lot of manufacturing and fabrication, small fabrication family businesses going on in western Nebraska. Why aren't we providing a bridge between these people? Why can't we encourage collaboration between eastern and western businesses, small businesses, and create products together in this state? All right? Also, we don't celebrate enough, you know? We feel like we have to have major accomplishments before it's worth getting out of the house, stopping watching TV or the internet or whatever. But we should be having periodic, maybe 2, 3, 4 times a year, community forums. We simply celebrate progress. We celebrate what we've done together. We honor people as much as we can. Maybe the format that I'm involved in, which includes interviews and focusing on people and finding out what they really know and believe. We actually did this in Norfolk. And it was very, very well received. People said, I had no idea that guy that was up there with you. I go to church with him. I had no idea how smart he was. You asked him the right questions. All of a sudden, he's turned into a genius. I was riveted listening to him. There's all kinds of opportunities like that for us to glorify and elevate the people inside of our community that are doing really good work, but are not receiving any kind of recognition or rewards or whatever. Now, every time we make an initiative, we try to do something innovative in our communities, that kind of community activity, celebration, video, I don't care what it is, and it's got to go online, right? Because all these young people that have left the community, they've had babies, they're 500 miles away, they're looking on YouTube, and there's their hometown right there on YouTube, doing some very cool stuff and talking about some cool stuff. And after all, we do have kids and they might want to be with Grandma and Grandpa. Let's go back. Possible, very possible. So there's a lot of ways, strategic alliances I mentioned before. Something we all talk about, by the way, we act like it's, I got an alliance, we're going to do a joint venture. A lot of people don't never do any of that at all. And you wouldn't believe, of all the seminars that I do, how to form a business venture, a joint venture, an alliance is the single most popular one of them all. I mean, small business people show up, cannot believe it. So they really do want to collaborate with people. They just don't know how to do it. And that could be, that urge, that impulse, could be the backbone of the collaboration, the platform interaction that becomes the basis for this theme, this idea of grassroots innovation, authenticity, reality. This is where it's at. This could be people working on laptops underneath a tree in Cherry County, and the creek's going by, and they're starting a company right then and there. People like that we've seen and worked with yet today. So there is a dream that we can sell. We have a pitch. And there's lots and lots of tangible things that we can do to actualize that pitch. Say, I want to go someplace where there's grassroots, populist, pragmatic, but also idealistic innovation initiatives going on the east end of the state and the west end of the state, and make this state be a come-together state, not a stay away from our county kind of state. We have that opportunity. So, this is the message. I appreciate you hanging in there with me on this thing. It's a big story. I avoided all the statistics. Somebody will listen to this and go, oh, you know, you didn't give us enough statistics on this and that. There's many things we should be talking about in the research and so on and so forth. Everybody already knows that. Everybody that is interested in this topic has already heard those many, many times. The key idea is the turning point in the paradigm, and that an administration official out of Washington, D.C. said, it's all changed. It's all changed. It's a brand new game. Now, as you might know, and I'm going to wrap up here, Hank Bounds is the head of the university system in Nebraska, and he came from Mississippi. He's brought an idea to do something called Blueprint Nebraska. He's getting many, many people involved on a volunteer basis to try to get together. Just get together and we'll try to figure out what we're going to do to keep these kids here and get this state going again, revitalize the state. He calls it Blueprint Nebraska. We've got a lot of important people, CEOs of large companies. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. I'm suggesting to you that grassroots innovation is the answer. It's been around for 15 or 16 years. Think about it. You have many opportunities to step in and take advantage of what I'm sharing with you today. I'm with WildBiz Growth Dynamics. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.